Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Rob Gutro. He is a paranormal investigator, medium with inspired ghost tracking of Maryland, and author of several books about ghosts and spirits. In our first episode, we talked about pet mediumship, his books, and some of his experiences involving paranormal investigations. Today, we'll take a deeper dive into some of his cases. Rob, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
It is, and all things ghosts and spirits. Here we go again with a part 2. So, for those that may have not heard your first episode, how did you get involved with inspired ghost tracking of Maryland?
I found out that I had these abilities a long time ago when I was a teenager, 2005. They reawakened when my puppy died and communicated with me. Then I started improving myself. And inspired ghost tracking I happened to find because I was looking for places to speak about my very first book. And they were a group in Maryland. They were founded in October 2008, and they were located near the Baltimore area. So I was invited to speak, and I did. After I gave my talk, the manager of the team came up to me, and she said, "We would like you to be a medium in our group." And that's how it was.
Now, one of these cases, it was a home that had reported some paranormal activity. I think you know which one I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So this was a private residence, and the home was being rented out to a family, mother, father, and some young kids. And they were reporting some things happening, like shadow figures, sheets actually being pulled off of a bed. And the children were panicked. They were scared. They didn't know what was happening. And the parents believed them, actually, because it also happened to the parents. So...
Wow.
Yeah, it's not like you're not telling me the truth. So they knew. So there was something going on. And they saw shadow figures too. So they reached out to Inspired Ghost Tracking. What happens with the paranormal group is the manager, Margaret Ehrlich, she goes through about a 5-page questionnaire to make sure that this is a legitimate possible haunting instead of something wrong with the house or people taking medication or alcohol.
So realistically, how many of these inquiries are actually legitimate?
It turns out to be about 80%, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
80% are legitimate?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, she may have a different take on that. She screens them before they all come to me, so...
So there's probably another bunch in there that you never have to deal with.
That's true. Yes. Yeah, that's very true. Fortunate that she spares me all that stuff. But this one did turn out to be legitimate. The first thing that the group does normally is they send in a technical team. And the technical team will go in there and they will set up either in the evening or do an overnight, depending on whether or not the family can go somewhere else. And they will take the technology, the thermal cameras, the digital recorders, thermometers, K2 meters that measure electrical impulses, and so forth. And they'll spend the night and they'll try to ask whatever entity there may be questions. And in this particular house, one of the team members caught a shadow figure in the hallway. So that was interesting.
Does your team have pictures of that and other incidents similar to that where you can actually see the shadow figure, right?
Yes.
Now, is that using special equipment? It's not like I could just take out my iPhone and take a picture of it, right?
You actually could. In some of these instances, they have digital cameras. But it also depends on whether or not the ghost wants to be seen.
Oh, okay.
So some ghosts will reveal themselves to certain people and not to other people. That's happened to me. I've had a ghost that appeared to me, did not appear to the other medium in the group. It depends on the person, just like human beings. There are some people we want to talk to, other people we don't want to talk to.
Okay, not surprising.
So the tech team went in and they got some information. But the thing is that the tech team does not talk to the mediums. So the next group that comes in are the mediums, myself and this other medium, Troy Klein. And we do not know anything about this case or the address until 1 hour before we're asked to be there. All we know is that we have to be at a certain place at a certain time. And it will probably take you this long to get there. That's all we know.
Which is consistent with medium sitter protocols where the sitters are usually advised, don't give them any information. You don't want to be victim to prejudice or your own imagination as a medium.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want any influence on what I'm picking up. This case turned out to be very involved. We actually started outside the house because we didn't want to go inside the house first. As it turned out, there was a reason for that. Troy was drawn to a particular door that led from the inside of the house to the outside. And that door wound up being a key to the two ghosts that we found within. When we went inside, I was drawn to the basement. Now, this was a split-level ranch house, and there was what looked like a basement apartment set up. And there was also a garage. The garage had been converted into a playroom because the person was trying to do daycare there. What was really chilling is that as we walked into that playroom, you have to go through a little furnace room. And walking through that furnace room, there was so much energy in there that it was like walking through a pool of water. Not only for me, but for the other medium as well. And the people who were not even sensitive that way could feel a heaviness in the air. Long story short, we wound up talking to a woman. And I wound up talking to a woman I felt like she was in her late 60s. And the other medium wound up talking to a woman who was in her 30s. When we finally compared notes, I said, that doesn't sound like the woman I'm talking to. And I asked, how old is the woman you're talking to? And he told me. And I said, well, the woman I'm talking to is older, much older. She's like in her late 60s or near 70. So we knew that there were two women that we were talking to. The woman who I spoke to gave me hints about her identity. She described herself, what she looked like, and she also showed me that she was at a table or like a bar in a kitchen that was cutting up vegetables and so forth and serving. It turns out this woman existed, and she worked in a restaurant, and she used to work the bar, and she used to serve food there.
This is one of the entities.
One of the entities, yes.
Right.
The second one, as it turned out, was her daughter-in-law. Her daughter-in-law had come to visit. We pieced all this together after we got these medium impressions. We got a hold of partial police report that confirmed all of these things. When we were going through the house, we were getting different impressions. For instance, we went upstairs where the shadow figure was seen. At the top of the stairway, I felt like I was being pushed down the stairs. And later in the police report, we found out that's exactly what happened. The person who attacked them pushed the older woman down the stairs. We thought it may have been a domestic issue. You know, when you go into a home, you think the two people live there, a man and a woman, it may be a domestic. But because there were two women, something didn't make sense. And we were trying to figure that out. They also shared pain of death with me. And that's what sometimes happens with a ghost in order to prove their identity. And I can actually feel physical pain, not to the extreme, of course, but enough to let me know how they died or what happened. And aside from being pushed down the stairs, I felt hit, punched, kicked, shot, stabbed. And the woman that Troy was talking to was also assaulted physically. So both of these women wound up being murdered in the home. And we later learned why they were there. Going through the investigation room by room, we were picking up on different things, and they were adding to this, so it put the puzzle pieces together. What happened was the police report revealed that there was a man that lived in that basement apartment. The older woman, was upstairs. Her daughter-in-law came to visit. The man in the basement apartment was in a drug-induced frenzy, and he was the perpetrator. He was the one that committed these terrible acts on both of these women. He dragged them through that furnace room. And that's why all that emotional energy was in there.
Still there.
Yeah, it is still there. That white door that I mentioned in the beginning there, that's the door that he took them out.
Okay.
He killed one of them in the home, and the other one was still alive, apparently. And he put them in a trunk of their own car and drove the car to a parking lot. And they both died there. It's a very tragic story.
Was this case actually solved?
It was solved. We were relieved to hear that it was solved. And the man who did it received a double murder sentence, life sentence for each. And he is in prison in Western Maryland.
Pretty grisly story. Have you ever had a case that you worked on that actually helped, let's say, like a murder investigation or anything like that?
No, we did not work with police to solve a murder investigation. This was a tragic way after the fact kind of thing. People who have hauntings are reluctant to reach out to somebody because they think, well, maybe I'm imagining it. There's really no one to find. Before the internet, you couldn't find anybody.
Right, you couldn't. Could they possibly be wary of maybe antagonizing the spirit, which is another reason they might not want to report it? Or does that not make sense?
Sure. Yeah. No, it makes sense. I always tell people that if you think that your home is haunted, they were actual living people. So you don't want to do anything to aggravate them. You certainly don't want to prompt them into anger. It's like having an invisible roommate, right?
An invisible roommate.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, a very good explanation. Now, you wrote a book about this. You've written, obviously, many books, but the book Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking. This account is included in that book, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yeah, so the full account is in there. And also that picture that I mentioned of the shadow figure in the hallway is in there. And one of the other interesting parts of this case is that we also got photographic evidence of one of the women that were still linger in that home. The technical team that had gone in the day before, the mediums, had captured an orb, a round ball of light that is the most simple form a ghost can take. I'm not a big believer in orbs, don't take a lot of stock in them, but I find that if they have colors and designs in them, they're more apt to be an orb. And sometimes you could find faces in them, and that's exactly what happened with this one.
And that's in the book.
That's in the book too, yeah. And in the book too, I have the photograph of the orb, the small photograph, and then I have a close-up of the orb, and then I have a close-up of the orb with arrows showing the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the mouth, the lips, and you can clearly see it. It's pretty chilling, actually.
I would imagine. I'm afraid to actually look at it myself. Okay, so you've got lots of experience with this type of thing, so your role as a medium, it's pretty obvious. You just can't take anyone in there to go feel out the spirits and do the investigation. You have to have certain abilities, right?
Yes. And I think the key too is also, number one, trusting your feelings. Because ghosts, earthbound ghosts, or spirits who have crossed over are energy. They can convey the energy of emotion, because emotion also has its own energy. So trust your feelings. That's number one. Number two, never, ever, ever provoke a ghost or talk to them in any disrespectful way.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that either. Because you're asking for trouble.
And no fooling around with Ouija boards either.
Gosh, no.
Do not do that. That is not a toy. You mentioned something earlier about proving your abilities. Mm-hmm. You know, that we touched on this in the first episode, but we didn't go into depth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was something that I had to do for myself because in my daytime job, I'm a scientist, a meteorologist. And in science, we have to prove everything. Like science, I use those same principles in my mediumship. I have to prove what I get. So one of the ways that I came up with to prove messages was that we would go into, myself and my partner would go into historic homes, and then I would see if there was anybody there, anybody earthbound. And that's how it started. And the very first place I went was a place called the Bel Air Mansion. It was in Bowie, Maryland. And I didn't know anything about the history of it at all. Nothing. So I walked in the door, and it was at Christmas time. They were having a Christmas open house. And I said, there's a little girl here.
A spirit, you mean?
An earthbound ghost, yeah, in the house. She didn't cross over. She stayed. So she came up to me, and she said, I want to show you my room. And I said, okay.
That's so creepy.
Yeah, it was a little unnerving.
Like The Shining almost.
I know.
Right?
Nobody else could see her.
Of course.
So
you were the lucky one. Okay.
I said to my partner, Tom, I said, there's a little girl here. And I asked her name. And she said her name was Anna. And she told me that she was 6 years old. And she used to live here. And she had her bedroom upstairs. So he's just like, okay, whatever. Just rolling his eyes, whatever. So I went upstairs and I followed her. She said, this is my room. So when I went downstairs and talked to the docent, the house historian, I found out that was indeed a little girl's bedroom back in the 1800s. And then I said, was there a little girl that passed away in one of the families that lived here? He said, yes. And I said, was she about 6 years old and her name was Anna? He looked at me and he said, yes. Have you been researching this house? And I said, no, I just was curious.
I just guessed.
And then he told me something that really gave me chills. He said, there's a family cemetery in the far back of the property and she's buried there. You can see her grave. So we went the next day and found her grave. Sure enough, her name was Anna. She was 6 years old when she died. And I thought, wow, that's crazy.
Okay, so you saw her, you confirmed that she lived there, confirmed her name, found her grave. What did she look like? Was she wearing clothes from another century, or was that not evident? It was like period clothing?
Yeah, yeah, it looked very outdated. It looked like it was something in the 1800s that a little girl may wear. So the next time I went, my mother was visiting, and I got my abilities from my mother's side of the family. My mother had the ability, but she was afraid to use it. And when we walked in the door, sure enough, there was little Anna. And my mother said, "There's someone around here, isn't there?" And I said, "Yeah, that little girl is here." And the little girl did not want to cross over. She didn't want to cross over because she was very happy in the home. She loved seeing people. She loved meeting new people. She loved playing all day long when she had the energy. Ghosts can only do things when they have energy. So she did not want to cross over, which I thought was tragic.
Eventually, we all do cross over, though, right? Hopefully.
Well, there have been some that have stayed for for centuries. I've met some of those in England and Ireland.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about the little girl Anna or that house?
No, that was it in short. I mean, she didn't cross over. And crossing people over to the other side when they become a spirit, that in my definition, is something like a marketing thing. I mean, you really have to be a salesperson because people chose to stay earthbound for reasons of their own.
Like John Wilkes Booth, right?
Yes.
He chose to stay at that site for a reason, which is where he shot Lincoln, right?
Yes. Yeah, he was most proud and arrogant, his evil deed about, and that's why he stayed there.
Let's talk about the book. This one is Ghosts and Spirits Explained. You talk about orbs again, ectoplasm, shadow figures, poltergeists, battlefields. This is interesting. I think you mentioned Gettysburg before when we talked, and you had some interesting things to say about that. Tell us about that.
Sure. So battlefields are one of the places that are rife with earthbound ghosts. And the reason for that is that sudden deaths usually generate confusion. When we die, suddenly we awaken as energy with our knowledge and our memories and our personality. I found there's often a blackout period, so that when we die quickly by an accident, whether it's a car accident or a murder or a battle or something, we black out. So we don't really remember that instant when we die. When these men in battle reawakened as an energy, they were confused. They thought they were still battling. They lingered too long, and then they got stuck. I've realized that the reason ghosts get stuck is because when we die, initially we have a lot of energy. We have a lot of physical energies that combine with our emotional energies, and it's like a battery. And over time, like a battery, that energy goes way down. When it gets below a certain threshold, you can't open the doorway to the other side. It's like a toy. If you put a battery in a toy, it'll work so long, and then it starts working very slowly.
Or a phone.
Or a phone, right?
Can't make calls when it's below 5% or something like that.
See, I'm dating myself. I'm talking about toys, and you're in the present day. So that's why they get stuck. And on rare occasion, if there is someone who dies nearby, even 200 years after these ghosts are trapped, a portal opens to the other side. And those earthbound ghosts can enter through that portal and cross over.
If there's an opening.
If there's an opening.
Right. Okay. Definitely good to know. Your experience has given you insight into the spirit world,
yes,
into the nature of how we go from one world or one dimension to another. Mm-hmm. And you've actually had conversations with these people. Let's go back to the two women and the double murder. Mm-hmm. It's not like they came out and said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and this is my daughter-in-law. We were murdered here." They didn't really disclose that right away, did they?
No, they did not. It's always kind of cryptic because it takes so much energy for them to convey a thought to a living person, a medium who can pick up on it, that they can only give us bits and pieces, and we have to put that puzzle together. They can tell me their age, and that's how Troy and I were able to differentiate them and realize that they were two different people. By the end of the investigation, though, when we knew those women were there, the older one and the younger one, we did not know their relationship. We had no idea what their relationship was. We did not find out their relationship until we got that police report.
What was that like when you actually saw the police report? Was it kind of creepy, or what was the feeling like after the experience and everything that you took in emotionally and otherwise? What was that like?
It was pretty startling, actually. It was actually read to us by the manager over the phone. So we didn't actually see the report itself, but she conveyed what was in it. Yeah, and it was chilling. I had chills just listening to her say, this is who this person is, this is who that person is. Yes, the older woman worked in a bar. Yes, she prepared food and so forth. There's no other way to describe it. But it also saddened me for a couple of reasons. Number one, that somebody would do that to anybody, that somebody would take somebody's life. Number two, that somebody who was so drug crazed didn't seek help for themselves before they did something they would regret for the rest of their lives. And three, that these women are now stuck there, but they chose to stay there.
So they chose to stay there. Do you know why they actually chose to stay?
I did. I actually asked them that question before we left on the investigation. And they said they were there to protect anyone else that comes into the home. They knew they were dead. They knew what happened to them. When the mediums left and we got the police report, the manager called the family, told them what happened. The family told them that the murderer had been captured and there was justice and there's no reason for them to stay, but they stayed. So they were protecting. And that's why they were appearing as shadow figures. They were trying to let the family know that they're there to protect them. So it's all very sad.
I'm sure the family were like scared out of their wits. A shadow figure. Does that look like someone who's trying to protect you? Not really.
Exactly. The other thing, too, about this story is that sadly we couldn't go back in because the family had moved out. By the time we got the police report and by the time everything came together and we figured out what had happened, the family had moved out, somebody else had moved in, and
can't go back in.
No, you can't go to a family and say, hey, look, there were 2 women murdered in your home. And we come back in and cross them over.
Wow. But if you had the opportunity, you would have actually tried doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
Tried to cross them over. Yeah. That is part of your duties. It's not like it's an assignment, but it's a task that you and Troy, is it? Mm-hmm. That you take on and you assume like we're going to try and do this.
Yes.
I know that's what I would do. I'm not a medium, but if I was, I'd be trying to figure out like if these people are stuck. I'm pretty good at sales. I can say, you don't need to stay here. Go. The light's over there. Why do you want to stay here? This is depressing.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't it?
You're looking at the same room for your entire afterlife. So you also asked me about, aside from battlefields, shadow figures and ectoplasm and so forth. And that's another way that ghosts or spirits can materialize because they're energy. So ectoplasm is just energy that spins around in a different way. An orb is another way that they can appear.
What are some of the most reliable signs? I would think it's the communication that the medium receives, because is there really a reliable tech that can spot ectoplasm and actually capture it? Does that even exist?
Well, digital cameras do their best to get it. In one particular case that we were on, I called it the case of the steelworker's ghost because he was a steelworker in Baltimore. He had come to a townhouse that was near his house when it stood to inhabit, and he was also scaring 2 girls that lived there. Before the mediums went in, the tech team went in with thermal cameras, and thermal cameras will see temperature differences, and they captured a picture. The mediums don't know anything about when a tech team goes in or anything. So when I go into paranormal investigations, sometimes I can sketch ghosts out. I can see them. I can either see them visually or I can see them in my head, telepathically. So I sketch them out. In the case of the steelworker's ghost, I sketched out this 50-something-year-old man. He was kind of a bigger, muscular, beefy man, bald. And then after the investigation, and we crossed him over, by the way, which was another whole issue. After the investigation, as I was putting the report together, the manager sent me the picture, the infrared picture. And I compared it to the sketch that I made, and he looks exactly like him. That's in the book. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. I like that. I think a lot of us are really after someone that can make some sense out of this so we don't think it's just fantasy. This is like evidential type discovery. You sketched something. You had no idea what the text did. And then you compared what they captured with their gear with your sketch, and it was almost the same thing.
Believe it or not, that has happened all the time. To me, it's unnerving, really. We did another investigation in the Howard County Historical Society that used to be a church. There was a male ghost there. When I walked in, he was on the stage, or looked like a stage, and I sketched him out, and I showed it to the docent who was working there, the historian, and she said, hold on just a minute. I know exactly who that is. I have to go grab a couple of books from when this was a church. And she pulled out one of the books and she opened it up and it looked like my sketch. The guy, the pastor of that church at one time, she knew who it was because she did a lot of research there. She put it side by side, and that's also in the book.
What period was this pastor from?
I think it was from the 1800s.
I remember you telling me about that. This is amazing stuff. I have a feeling this is going to turn into a series because I know you got more stories, but yeah, I think we have time for probably one more. You did mention something about some infamous ghosts in England and Ireland. So maybe from that lot, is there anything that really stands out?
Oh, gosh. I think the one in England that really stands out the most, well, there were actually two that really stand out the most. One is George Boleyn. George Boleyn is the brother of Anne Boleyn, who was one of Henry VIII's wives. I didn't know anything about England or history or anything. We went on vacation. The trip was not planned by me at all. It was planned by my partner, who loves the Tudor period. So we went to all these Tudor-era castles.
That must have been cool.
It was awesome. What was awesome is that every time I went somewhere, some dead person was talking to me.
You can't take a vacation, can you?
I can't take a vacation. I can't. And because when mediums go on vacation, our guard is down. I'm there to enjoy it. I'm there to learn. I'm there to experience the whole new place and so forth. I'm not thinking about ghosts. That was the thing. That's why so many of them got to talk to me, because I'm like, okay. So when we walked into Hever Castle, the minute we walked through the front door, there was a man standing next to me, and he said, "Hello, my name is George." And he had that British accent, a very thick accent. And I looked at my partner and I said, "Do you know anybody named George that would have lived here? Because there's a dead guy standing next to me." And he says his name is George. Tom looked at me and he said, "That would be George Boleyn, because this was the Boleyn family home. And George was Anne Boleyn's brother, and they were both beheaded by Henry VIII.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Henry VIII was not a nice guy, was he?
No, he was a tyrant. So what was even more interesting about not only understanding what the identity is, Johnny, he walked with us from room to room, this ghost, and he pointed out things in every room, things that happened during his lifetime. He told me about the year he was most proud of his sister, Anne Boleyn. And I'm writing all these things down because I don't know anything about anything. And when I came home, I looked them all up and I proved all the things that he said, which was crazy.
It is.
Yeah. Like the year that he gave me, I didn't even know what year he lived, but the year that he gave me, it turned out to be the year that Anne was bestowed her first royal title. There's no way I would know that.
No, of course not. That's probably one of the fun things about being a medium. You can discover something and offer something to, let's say, the sitter, and the sitter doesn't know what it means and you don't know what it means, but then a month later they come back to you and say, "Hey, you remember the blue dress that you mentioned, for instance?" I've seen that happen as well. So was George fully aware that Anne was beheaded? I think he was beheaded as well. Do they forget about that? Is it blacked out? How does that work?
No, they remember that they were executed. They just don't remember the act when it happened, but they knew that they were going to be executed, so that memory stayed with them. So yeah, he knew that his sister was murdered as well.
Why did he decide to stick around?
That was a question I asked him. He decided to stick around because, number one, he wanted to make sure that the world knew that he did not do those heinous things that Henry VIII accused him of, which was having relations with his own sister. That's what Henry VIII accused Anne Boleyn of doing. And that's why he executed both of them. He wanted to stay behind and make sure that people knew that he was innocent of what he was accused of. And the reason he stayed at Hever Castle is because that was a comfortable place for him. That was a safe place for him. That was where he wanted to stay.
Can you really blame him, I guess?
No.
I guess for some people, living in the past is very comfortable. Interesting stuff, man. You've got quite a great life as a medium. Anything else that we should know, at least for today?
Oh, gosh. If you think your house is haunted, call paranormal investigators. They should not charge you anything. It's also good if you can call an electrician if you have electrical problems, or call an architect for house settling problems. And my partner's an architect, so he was able to debunk a whole bunch of things. So that's important. Also take notes. Note times, dates, and so forth whenever these crazy things may happen. Because there's a reason for everything, and there's a reason why it happens at certain dates and certain times. But for the most part, if you do think your house is haunted, treat them with respect.
Don't antagonize them.
Don't antagonize your invisible roommate, because they will not make you happy.
Oh my. Okay. Expert advice. Rob, thanks again for coming back to the show. Great stuff. Who knows, we might do another installment as well. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
Sure. Thanks, Johnny. They can find me at robgutro.com or petspirits.com, because my last name is sometimes hard to spell.
Excellent. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. For more information, please go to closertovenus.com or mindbodyspirit.fm, which our show is now on. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.